Hey everyone, Greg here. As you may know by now, I'm the co-founder and CEO of TripShock, an online reseller for water sports and tours. For the past 12 years, we've had the pleasure of working with hundreds of operators across the country, and we're looking to grow our community. It's free to sign up, and you only pay when we bring you confirmed bookings. We'll help you reach new customers, fill empty seats, and grow your business like so many have done with us over the years. Head over to partners.tripshock.com to learn more about our program, read testimonials, or speak directly with our supply team. As always, thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
They come to relax, enjoy the beach, have fun, and spend money. And that's where we come in. This is the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. Find out tips on the best ways to market and operate a water sports business. If you're a water sports operator, you need to grow your brand, operate more safely, upgrade your operations, and of course, increase bookings. We're industry veterans, broadcasting from Destin, Florida. This is the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. And this is Kevin O'Neill and Greg Fisher.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast, episode 26. I'm joined here today with my good buddy, Kevin O'Neill. How are you doing, Kevin?
Oh man, I'm doing great, man. I'm having a little smoothie right now.
I know. It looks somewhat delicious. It's like green and brown and
Yeah.
What's in it?
Yeah. It's got spinach and peanut butter and protein powder and almond milk.
Yeah, you need to get that power shake to lift all those boats, huh?
Yeah, man. Yeah, not so much, man. I paid somebody to do that for me.
On today's episode, we're talking with Ben Calder, CEO of WhereWolf. WhereWolf is a digital waiver company. They really focus on adventure travel. The topic is about digitizing your check-in process or just improving it, really. We go into a lot of different directions here, but Ben is our first international guest, which is kind of cool. Kevin and I were kind of excited to see that we have 25 different countries listening to the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. So we can't just think that we're in this little bubble here in Florida anymore because we got people all over listening, which is awesome.
We're worldwide, baby. What?
Yeah.
We talked to Ben from New Zealand. Said, that's not a knife. This is a knife.
No, that's Australian. That's Australian.
I know they get all pissed off. But man, it's part like when you're brothers with another country and you guys sound and look the same. It's gonna happen, man. People are constantly like, "Are you from Canada?" No, it's not true. It's the other way around. So,
well, it's funny. When I was in New Zealand, I was talking with a New Zealand couple that just happened to be on the plane, and I said, "What do you think Americans sound like?" And they did a country accent.
Yeah.
So it must be like if you're from overseas, they always think that we're just a bunch of rednecks.
Dude, it's so funny, man. When I was doing like my product demo with with Natalie from WhereWolf, she was like, "Oh, I love rednecks" or whatever. I guess that was more like Irish, I guess, what I just did. But I was like, nah, like typically not the most favored like constituency of our country. Those rednecks always getting a bad rap.
So what do you think about today, or what do you think about the interview?
No, I really enjoyed it, man. I like Ben. I use their product, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't want to give too much of the secrets away about the upcoming episode, but I thought it was pretty interesting. About how he sort of didn't really look at himself as a waiver company at all. As, they look at themselves as digital marketers. And surprise, surprise, they're on the Awkward Watersports Guys.
We talk about improving the check-in process in a lot of the different episodes. We talked about upsells. We talked about safety and other things that might, I guess, falls in the category as check-in process or improving it. Really, I think this episode is a lot about enriching the check-in process. Because we think about faster, better, but they're not synonymous with enriching it. And when I say enriching is getting more out of the check-in process, utilizing the byproduct of the waivers. So yeah, you get the waivers, But really, you can get so much more if you have the right outlook on it, such as gathering customer information, getting emails so you can reach out to these people later. We all know from the previous episode, or not the previous episode, but the one we did with America from Von Mack, it's not getting first party data, which is emails, and it's getting a lot harder. 5 years from now, who knows, how difficult. You might have to pay a premium to get access to people's data. That's just going to make it very expensive for the smaller operators to be competitive, because it's really going to widen the gap on who can contact who anymore.
Yeah, and even more to that point, even in your current your current online booking software only gives you data on one person who's doing the booking. So obviously, it doesn't matter what we do. I mean, if you're doing a jet ski or you're doing a boat rental, really with boat rentals, it's pretty incredible how much data you can get, not just on the person making the booking, but all their friends are coming on that boat rental. So there's a lot. You can tell like 10x it with boat rentals, but like say even like parasailing, they're going to be tandems. So you can really double down. It's not just the person booking, but the person going enjoys these activities too. So you want to be able to create a profile or an archetype, if you will, for these customers, because not just the person that's not your profile who's profiling that customer is not just the person who's doing the booking, but the people that are coming along, they're enjoying it too. But for the most part, usually it's one person who does it. Even when they're like multiple families traveling, a lot of times one person's handling all of the bookings and planning, and then they're splitting the payment down the road. So as we move into the future, it's going to be more difficult from a privacy standpoint to figure out who your ideal customer is. And as you well know, Greg, nothing's more important than us knowing who's coming on our boat so we can make sure that we're getting that right message to the right people.
Sounds good. Well, let's get into the interview.
Let's get awkward.
All right, guys, we're here with Ben Calder, CEO of WhereWolf out of Queenstown, New Zealand. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you very much for having us, Greg.
And Ben, you are our first international guest on the show.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't realize that.
And in fact, I was just looking at our podcast stats, and we have listeners from 25 different countries. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Kevin is now going worldwide with his takeover of water sports.
That is awesome.
Why am I alone in this, man? Am I going out in the world by myself? Hey, speaking of worldwide, so is it true that that New Zealanders or Kiwinians, I don't know, Kiwis, that don't like being mistaken for Australians? Does it piss you guys off?
Yeah, it depends who you bump into in the street, to be honest.
That was a hard yes.
Oh my God.
So that's the way Canadians feel.
Yeah.
There was like been pissed off for being like, like they're like, God damn, we got kidnapped by terrorists and we're not even American. Son of a bitch.
That would be my all Uber drivers. Guess Kiwi first so you don't have an angry customer.
Well, Ben, again, welcome to the show. And we like to always start the show off with getting to know a little bit about our guests. So tell us a little about who you are and how you got into the digital waiver business.
Yeah, great. Well, look, obviously I'm a Kiwi. My accent's going to be a little strange for some. But I've been in tourism for about 10, 11 years now. I've kind of spent my career in it, both hospitality and tourism side of things. My education is, I've got a certificate in adventure leadership, a diploma in commercial skydiving, and a master's in entrepreneurship. So 3 very random things, but if you throw them together, it kind of says software and tourism.
I didn't even know that those things were like, that you could get degrees in those things. Your parents must have been like, oh, great. Perfect.
Yeah.
Why don't you just get an art degree? But it seemed to work out though, huh?
Yeah, try and convince your parents. This is how I actually did it. I'm like, I'm going to do a diploma in commercial skydiving. And mum was like, absolutely not. And my parents were horse riders. So I actually looked up, and horse riding was number 3 on the most dangerous sports in the world in terms of number of deaths, where skydiving was out of the top 10. And that was my way of convincing them that it'll be fine, because I was like, look, you've got a more dangerous sport than I do. Yeah, so I started Big Night Out, a pub crawl that I did about when I was 21 years old. Everyone thought, hey, what are you up to? Do you just want to party for a living? And I was like, absolutely. But it turned out to be an awesome little opportunity because as a 21-year-old, I could take backpackers out partying, and I opened a different location all up throughout New Zealand. And our claim to fame was we won Best Backpacker Night Out in New Zealand 3 years in a row. So as a young kid in your 20s, I thought that was pretty fun. We actually ended up building WhereWolf for the pub crawls and realized, hey, it was an awesome opportunity to help grow this company. So we started developing that software and started growing it around the world. And then I ended up based in Denver, back in New Zealand because of the pandemic, but I can't wait to get back to the US.
Thanks, Ben. And you know what's funny? I've only traveled internationally like 3 times my entire life. And one of those times was to Queenstown, New Zealand, out of all places in the world. So I'm very familiar with where you're from. And we have a lot of people listening from Florida or just the Southeast in general. And just imagine mountains meet beaches, because they got parasailing, they got jet boat tours, they got steamboat tours. I mean, I feel like a little bit of New Orleans is in Queenstown. Then there's some like really off the cuff things like zorbing and luging. I mean, just gondola. I mean, it's literally a little piece of every destination in the U.S. all brought into one place. I mean, the only thing you don't have is a beach, but I'm sure you don't got to go far away.
Wait a minute, what? How do they have water sports and no beach?
Massive lake, glacial fed, freezing cold all year round, and it's great fun.
But the beach doesn't, the lake doesn't have a beach, like a small beach? Like...
Oh, yeah.
But just rocks, you know, it's just one of those rocky beaches. You know what they have in Queenstown, Kevin? They got one of those breachers. They're like a little whale, like a mechanical whale that goes. I mean, they got jet skis. They got really everything there. I was really impressed with the variety of water sports they have.
Well, this is where jet boating was invented, bungee jumping was invented. Queenstown is considered the adventure capital of the world and party capital of New Zealand.
Yeah, it's crazy because there's no commercial bungee jumping in the States. You guys still have commercial bungee jumping there?
Oh, yeah. Is it not in the US? I didn't realize that.
No, because nobody will write it for insurance purposes.
Wow.
So it's always sort of been like there's always been a comparative or a correlation that people have drawn between parasailing and bungee jumping, because there was so many claims in such a short period of time that nobody would write it anymore. So, but this is like back in the 90s, you know, when I think it first got pretty popularized.
Our topic today is improving your check-in process, and this is a very loaded conversation because we can go in so many different directions. But I think for the purpose of your expertise and the way that things are moving in terms of evolution of the check-in process using digital services, we'll focus on the digital side mostly today, and we'll throw in some things that are non-digital, but that will be kind of the context. So, you know, kind of the first question, kind of open this up, is why should operators start looking at digital services to improve their check-in process?
Yeah, I think it's really important, mainly for the fact of the information that's kind of getting missed and the opportunities that is getting missed if they're just kind of recorded on a piece of paper and stored away in a garage for 7 years. You know, there's gold on those waivers. And it's kind of about unlocking that potential. We got going with this originally because I was looking at these waivers, and there's a little tick box on all the waivers that you sign that are like, where did you find out about us from? And I was asking friends if they ever actually looked at that information, and they're like, yeah, we kind of glance over it, and that's our gauge of how our marketing is working. But it was never actually recorded anywhere or used. Big night out, the pub crawl that we had became the second biggest Facebook page in New Zealand tourism, only behind actually the inventors of bungee jump. And we were just a little pub crawl. And the reason that we could do that is because we could contact all of our customers the next day. And we were like, hey, here's your photos of last night. Check them out. It was back in the days when Facebook kind of forced you to like those, like the page before you could comment on or like or share the photos and things like that. But just the fact that we could contact them afterwards really started to grow the business, and we could start sending out offers. You know, they say word of mouth is the most powerful marketing, but how do you initiate that? How do you start those reviews? How do you start, recommendations and getting people to actually start talking about you is have the opportunity to contact them afterwards. So for me, it's all about the marketing opportunity from the data you collected. End of the day, we hope people don't have to use the waiver component of it. That's not the special part. The special part is the ability to start having a digital database of all your customers.
There's different layers of check-in. You have, once you get the reservation completed, the customer gets their pre-arrival via text message or email. And then they show up, they fill out paperwork, or they fill out the paperwork on a tablet if it's digitized. There's a lot of steps that they go through, from pre-arrival with the information to showing up to the facility, to finding the facility, then physically checking in, taking the voter's test, going through orientation. So there's, 5 or 6 steps to a check-in. And, WhereWolf covers a couple of those. But let's dive into more of those steps. And I guess let's start with the pre-arrival. What are some things that operators are missing out on the pre-arrival that could potentially improve their processes?
Well, I like to compare it to the aviation industry, like airlines and things. They do such big volume. They've got it dialed. So replicate that, in my opinion. And when you're talking about the pre-arrivals, how all of us have been in the taxi running late on the way to the airport, and you check in on your phone, and then you can just kind of sail on straight through. And they've got it down to make it a really kind of nice experience for what can be quite an unpleasant experience, is just that kind of formality process. So make yours the same. Make it as easy as possible for people to actually turn up and attend the activity. That's the chance for the staff to actually engage with them on a personal level, rather than give me your credit card, sign this, how's your day? How's your week? What have you been up to? Make it more personal rather than all the paperwork and payment side of things.
So I want to backpedal real quick and unpack something that you said, and specifically about your company, because we talked about this a little bit, because those were the things that I saw about WhereWolf. I was like, I'd done digital waivers before. I didn't give a toss about them. I guess I saw no real benefit in them, because I could hand out all of my check-in process was already streamlined. And as much as we never do commercials on the show, but we have you on there, we like your product. But that was the first thing I noticed. That was my selling point, and that's obviously what you're saying about the bones of WhereWolf truly are. So now you have this idea, this data acquisition business model, which is what you're telling us, right? You're basically saying the waiver part, or just a portion of it, the true genius in our product is the data accrual, right?
Yeah. Look, it's the marketing, it's the magic behind it.
Right.
I hope no one ever has to download one of our waivers. I'm sorry.
What do you mean by that?
Because if they have to download one of our waivers, I'm talking about from an operator's perspective. It means something's gone wrong. If they're having to use the waivers to protect them in a liability suit or anything like that.
I got downloaded after the time. We both were stumped. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Sorry,
I hope nobody signs these waivers. Like, wait a minute. Man, I understand that the gold is in the marketing, but
we completely took me out of it. It's so weird having a service that you actually hope no one uses, but it's like, no one needs to use in terms of liability protection. But what I hope people use, most importantly, is actually the gold behind it. Is like, grow your business from that, and often it's just stored in a lockup for 7 years. That's some of the funniest conversations we've had when trying to pitch the product is if people get into pricing, they realize actually when they break it down, they're paying $100 a week for a storage facility in downtown somewhere, stacked full of waivers. And we've had companies that send someone in every month and go and destroy the waivers that are 7 years old. And they've got like a roster process that they go in. Quite entertaining, but yeah.
So Ben, tell me, when you heard the news that Apple was basically keeping their data from the Facebook users, were you like, yes, like that gives you guys another hook, right? Because now you can be like, well, especially if they move into that model, then. Because, I went into some pretty extensive training on WhereWolf last night with one of your employees, Natalie, and we got into the analytics side of WhereWolf, and it was like, I was like, oh, graphs and pie charts. I was like, I didn't even know you could do this. Like, this is fucking awesome. Like I nerd out about that kind of thing. So, I have to imagine then that's probably going to be a pretty valuable asset moving forward when, tech companies are starting to make it harder and harder to get data. Now you guys are going to act as, because initially that was my big thing with WhereWolf was, and nothing against OTAs, but I was like, well, if TripAdvisor hides their emails from me, now I can get those emails. Now I can reach out and work on, and increase my direct bookings by having that conversation with those customers. So those were some of the benefits I saw the particular. I just find it interesting that you say that's like the main crux of our business is this, just assigning the release forms is like an added extra bonus.
Yeah, that's the method. The reason is the data for sure. It's not just the fact that it's holding it back from like OTAs and things like that are holding that information back. It is also the fact of getting more kind of enriched data, because often a booking is only one person, but is made by one person, and a booking system are only catching one person. But a digital waiver system catches 100% of people, so it's more full data.
We talk about, like, when we hear the word like improving your check-in process, don't think about it in terms of how do I make it faster? Think about how do I enrich my check-in process? And that can go for getting more data from the person. It could be branding the check-in process. And when I say branding the check-in process, you got to go back to one of our episodes with Ryan Turner from Your Biker Gang about he completely brands his check-in process, where when you show up, they give you like biker names, they give you bandanas. The tour guide actually makes you feel like you're in a biker gang. When you're able to make your process more efficient, you get more information to your users pre-arrival, so that you're not having to have that 15-minute conversation of stuff that you could have got out of the way pre-arrival, like during a text message or a book. Then you have time to actually get to the good stuff, customer service, asking, like Ben said, ask them how their day is, or making it feel like they're in a totally out of this world trip, even though they're in this small little town. And those are the things that you have to think about, is getting rid of the stuff that can be handled elsewhere or make it more efficient, and allowing your company to kind of change up the entire paradigm.
You mentioned Your Biker Gang, but I mean, I think something that is maybe not universal, but pretty applicable as a lot of people go there. Disney World has really mastered that concept of making the entire journey from the beginning, from you hitting book now, how even the booking, the paying for it process, the entire experience from beginning to end, and you never want it to end. You never want it to end. Even when you get those emails, like, what deals does Disney World have? They make that entire experience enjoyable, and they definitely brand the shit out. Those little RFID bracelets they have for the kids with I still have those things floating around with their names on it, and then the Mickey Mouse. It's really incredible. So to that point, I think that as far as digitizing your check-in process, you have a lot of opportunities there to sort of mimic that same experience.
Yeah, Disney's a perfect example. Disney's actually probably the best example out there.
Greg loves Disney World.
I love it. Every time I go there, there's so much new technology they have, and they're just like the whole, how they just reinvented payments. Probably make a ton more money. They track you through the whole entire park now, and they know where. I mean, they re-engineered the entire park to the 21st century. It's unbelievable.
All right, back to this is gonna be like the Disney episode. Like, wait a minute, what are we doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm getting
so
tickets for Disney.
I got kind of I want to play devil's advocate, because we're talking about digitizing the check-in process or using digital services, but there are some people who are still very against going digital, and their response is, well, we've been doing everything the same way and it works. Or they might be in a situation where they can't get maybe good Wi-Fi, or it's limited, or they just feel like paper is easy. Because, like, for example, in Florida, when you rent a boat, you actually have to have a paper contract still on the boat. If Coast Guard or FWC stops you, they have not gotten with the times yet. If there's one component in your check-in process that still needs to be paper, or two components, why not just keep everything all the same? So Ben, like, what do you say when you're in those situations? Are there situations where you have to still use paper for check-in, or use maybe more traditional methods that are still used.
Yeah, Greg, look, obviously I'm biased to this one because I think, our daily goal as a company is to make everything as digital as possible. I get really frustrated actually when people say, "Oh, yeah, I've got a digital, check-in or digital waiver service," but it's actually only for kind of pre-arrivals. But when they turn up on site, very commonly that's when they kind of break down and operators end up passing paper waivers over. So we've tried to design a whole product to be completely digital, so it covers every scenario, and that includes offline as well. Because, we've had a bit of insight into why we do what we do in terms of capturing that marketing data. It's not just about getting that piece of paper. If you need it, for sure, but I definitely struggle with that concept of, hey, it's always worked, so why do we add that? If you're interested in growth, if you're interested in customer experience, then I think you should.
Well, there's a world where that you could live in both those places, I think, because I'm the perfect example of it. This has been going through my head, and we just signed up. Well, we didn't just sign up. Well, just finally started using, got everything integrated, and got WhereWolf set up. But initially, as we talked, we don't pull any punches, but we were having some issues with understanding the system. Now, that wasn't WhereWolf's fault. That was just me not being able to get into the nuts and bolts of it. And really, I'm a busy guy. So we got through that. But initially, I was like, well, we got this system. Like, just have them. My guy's like, I don't get it. I'm like, me either. Just have them sign on paper. But what I did think about moving forward is I said, well, if I never understand this technology, if we're not getting the conversions on people signing before they get there, if it is slowing down now, these are just my questions and concerns, right? As any operator would have. Not saying that this would happen, but it's just something I have to take into consideration. So I said, well, if this is the way we have to do it, that's fine, but I'm still going to be able to 10x my email licks or 7 for me, because I do boat rentals, I do jet skis. So we only get one person that gives us their name and their email, and that's it. Now, in addition to all those emails, then I also get all of this analytical data where they're from, who took the booking, how old are they? There's all these other things. So to that point, yes, you want to use the software for all of its worth because this is, what you're selling, obviously. But at the same point in time, if you do have to live in and out of that box just by sheer necessity because you're working off the beach, I like how you said that right at the top of the show, that like the true intent of the software is for marketing and analytics purposes. And I think moving forward in the future, that's going to be really, really important, not to sidestep the idea of the online waiver, because like you said as well, this is something that's happened. If you do have to go into a dusty bin in a garage, and this is what I was telling my guys, if we have to do 9/10 of the paperwork in old school physical format, the one that I have to have is the release of liability digitized, because that saves my life if I need it. It could save my entire company if I need it. And, anything can happen to paper, like you said, and that's the magic number. For those of you guys who don't know how long those release of liabilities can hold up in court, they have 7 years, and that's how long you want to hold on to them for. To that point, I think you can sort of live in both worlds if needs be, but at the same point in time, like I would really make sure the release of liability is digitized for sure.
We have our reservation software, and I can tell you half of the clients that we have, they used a hybrid model. Actually, a couple of them still do. They have still yet to go full in on online bookings and digital use of the platform. And we try. We do training. Typically it's the owner is older. He's just kind of wanting to do this his way until he's out. And some of them are pretty candid with us. Are like, listen, I'm not going to change the way I've been doing things because I only have 5 years left and I'm retiring. So this is the way we're going to do it. So it inhibits the team from actually making that change. So Ben, what do you recommend to, I'm sure you deal with this on a daily basis. What do you recommend to water sport companies that maybe have some part of their team that wants to move to like a digitized check-in process, the other half doesn't, but that other half is the one that has probably more say? Like, what do you suggest to these companies in order to try to get things moving forward? Is there any tips?
I think it's just about understanding the advantages. It's an easy option to do what you've always done, get what you've always got, kind of thing. But if you really look at the advantages, then I think that's probably the easiest way to kind of convince someone, because I found my own work process, for example, I used to always carry around a notebook with a pen and paper, but I travel so much that just became a nightmare. Then I'd leave it at the office. And as soon as I personally took all my stuff digital, I just found myself so much more efficient. And we see it time and time again with operators. You talk about the hybrid model. That daunts me. If something happened, I want to be able to search my database and find it, and that's what operators are able to do. And it's backed up by all the metadata: what time the person checked in, where were they, what who printed it, what staff member printed it, and everything like that. I would just imagine searching it not being there, and then you look at this garage full of waivers and going, I've got to find it in this mess, kind of thing. But if I was trying to convince someone, it would purely be about looking at the advantages, going, hey, the customers are going to enjoy it more. It makes our check-in process faster because the waiver should be done before they get there, and it's super helpful, especially if if you're hiring one boat and you've got 6 people turning up. When they're doing these kind of trips, people have Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups that they just share that link on, and everyone completes it before they get there. So when they turn up, they're thinking about the experience, not the admin they have to do beforehand.
Another thing I think as well is that I think our business model to a certain extent is a hybrid model, because like most of these guys are not. If you say SaaS to them, they're going to be like, "What?" If you say no, like services as software, they're still going to be like, "What?" So I know a lot of guys that just forever didn't even have a proper website. They didn't want to get involved with Fair Harbor. I've heard complaints about, they're going to tack on 6%. And it's funny because it's not about the 6%. When you talk to those guys, when you get down to the kernel of it, they're like, I could get that 6%. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you don't act like that to the customer. Like, I don't like my charge was getting. No, you want that extra 6%. But at the end of the day, if you can make your customer's journey easier, better, like this is what it's all coming down to, right? Because when it comes right down to it, you don't want to ever have to keep on paying those marketing costs. You don't want to pay the 10, the 15, the 20, depending where concierge, 30, 40, whatever it may be, %. And this is what it all comes down to. Can you constantly whittle away at those costs? And the way that you're going to whittle away at those costs are going to be good branding, continuing the conversation, make sure you have a loud, strong, reverberating message. And it's got to be in the entire and everything that you do. Like I believe that everything from signing a waiver to saying goodbye, it has got to be like goodbye. So says Destiny Water Adventures. You know what I mean? Like, how can I imprint this on you like continually forever? Because you have to become more profitable. You have to be scalable as a business, unless you want to have that just a lifestyle business and be checking people in and, you know what I mean? Like doing that for the rest of your life, which I mean, some guys, that's what they want to do. So that you have that guy that's just like, no, for 20 years, I'll drive this boat and you know, what have you. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, it's
I couldn't agree more. But if it's a lifestyle business, what kind of broader lifestyle do you want? You know, do you want to work harder for less, or do you want to work less for more type of thing? Especially if it's a lifestyle business, I think it is about cutting back costs, but cutting back the right costs and making sure that what you're spending is reducing your workload and increasing your profitability.
Going beyond waivers, I think when it comes to the check-in process, just overall, we take for granted our employees' time. I think we take for granted our customers' time. I mean, they obviously don't want to sit in front of a booth for an hour, filling out paperwork and watching videos and waiting for their turn to get on a jet ski. So, I mean, to not mention reservation tech in a check-in discussion is be doing justice to this podcast. So I'm going to stay somewhat quiet because I I mean, I'm not the guest, and I do own a reservation system, but I'm pretty equal. I think we have a lot of great reservation software. I have a lot of respect for a lot of the software that's out there. I think it's helping businesses, and that's very important to me. But let's talk about the reservation software and how it needs to be used for the check-in. And Ben, I know WhereWolf does connect with multiple reservation systems. I mean, our reservation system, WaveRes, we're about to get a connection with WhereWolf. But how does that help the process when it comes to waivers? But more so, how does it just help the operator communicate and make for a better experience with the customer?
Well, you know what I enjoy about all of the different reservation systems out there at the moment is I love the fact how kind of positively competitive they are, and that it's driving quality, and I really like that because that what you can do with your reservation system now, I think is awesome, and it really, really helps these operators, with efficiency, with growth, with everything. From a waiver perspective, it's awesome to have that integrated because we know what activity, what time, we can help manifest them, and we can send that waiver out in advance, get it filled out. Depending on the reservation system, it can be pre-populated or it can just be all manifested within our software because a booking is, one booking with a number of participants where the waiver system obviously breaks it down into the individual. So if you want to allocate equipment and things like that, you can do it on an individual level. But I do love the kind of competitive environment out there because of how much quality it's actually driving and some of the stuff I think is awesome.
Do you, and I'm going to ask a hard question here that's not about waivers, more about your business model. Do you find that, like, I don't want to say it, but so like, I think Greg, you'd mentioned that Peak Pro has their own waiver system, correct?
They have a built-in system.
Right. So does that ever concern you, Ben, that like the products and services you guys are offering are going to be gobbled up by the big booking tech companies?
No, not at all. We integrate with Peak, for example, and our whole team is focused on creating a better digital waiver experience that improves the quality from the customers to the operator. That's one small piece in their entire software ecosystem. So it's kind of like everyone can send an email. Why does MailChimp exist?
Right.
It's a specialty service that we dedicate all of our resources into. And if they saw us as a competitor, they wouldn't integrate with us.
Without like giving the keys of the kingdom away or anything like that, like I'm assuming you have like your brain's got to be constantly going 100 miles an hour as to like how you can constantly improve and update and, sort of even streamline your own process because that's what you're in the business of, right? Is streamlining processes.
That's actually the easy part. You know why? Because our customers tell us exactly what they want. The hard part is deciding, which one to do first and what resources to throw at it. Because there's, and that's probably the reason why I'm not concerned about other operators adding that. WhereWolf's 8 years old. Next month actually. There's still so much we can add, and there's the roadmap is absolutely huge, and customers are always asking us what they want, or when we're going to add different features and things like that. So, if we build everything, then and people were catching up, then I'd be worried. But the fact is, there's so much further stuff to go.
I actually spoke with someone from Fair Harbor, and I asked them, like, why don't you guys start your own OTA? I mean, you already have 15,000 so products. I mean, they could start their own, kind of like with Peak Pro. They have like a somewhat of a hybrid model, but they really haven't.
And Resdi.
They really haven't gone, Resdi, but they really haven't gone heavy on the OTA side. I think there's probably more opportunity on the reservation system side. Their response is that they want to focus on a really great system. They just to look at them as like WordPress, where they are the system, and then there's all these plugins. Like WhereWolf would be like a plugin. PickThrive would be a plugin. And that's where the OTAs would be a plugin, I guess you could say. So they want to just have that platform and focus on that, and then everything else that could be kind of plug and play. Now, their model could change. This was before they were bought by Booking.com, but I like that. And that's kind of where I've taken WaveRes is I want to focus on the platform really, really well, and then work with companies like WhereWolf, or, maybe a company like PickThrive might be something that we would work with, and just plug it all in. And then they can choose which ones work best, have some different OTAs. But I think that's where if reservation systems stay in that lane, I believe there could be a lot of success. But when they try to be a one do it all, just imagine if, just tour companies, if they just started saying, okay, when they see an opportunity, let's do parasailing, let's do dolphin cruises. And now you're this huge behemoth. I mean, some guys can handle it, but at the end of the day, like doing a few things, doing a few things really, really well is going to give you less stress, and you have a lot more opportunity to scale that.
So if anybody from Fair Harbor is listening, Greg, who owns an OTA, thinks that you guys should not get into the OTA business. But they are, though. They are. The FHDN is totally an OTA.
Their parent company.
I mean, they're taking 5%. That's their thing. Like
they are, but they're not they're not like fairharbor.com they're using affiliates to
agree.
to do it, which is good. It's a good strategy.
I mean, for lack of a better term, like OTA affiliate, it's like fucking tomato. You know what I mean? Go on. But they are, to me, they are. I mean, now don't get me wrong. Most of that FHDN is like 90% of it's other affiliates, man. I'm like, other OTAs. I was like going through the list. I'm like, what is this? Not to get wildly off track, but I mean, this is sort of like, this is your world though, right, Ben? I mean, yes, you're a waiver company, but realistically, you're a digital marketer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's our advantage is having one focus. In particular in New Zealand, there were a couple of reservation systems that try to do everything. One of them has gone bust within the last 6 months, because they try to spread themselves too thin. They tried to be, everything for everyone, and that doesn't work. Look, there's a reason you've got a washing machine and a dishwasher in your house. They both wash your shit, but in very different ways. It should be the same with your reservation system or your waiver system or your point of sale or whatever you've got set up. If something's specialized, then it's going to be better.
Yeah.
So back into the digital waiver. I'm sorry. So what would you suggest to these hybrid guys? Like, so what is a workaround for if you're working off a beach, or because I got a lot more deep in the software than I have been in a long time. So what I sort of realized was that, initially when I got into it, I'm like, oh, it's just like a waiver. Like my waiver works for parasailing, for boat rentals, for, it's just a release of liability. So this works for everybody. But that's not really the case with WhereWolf, is it? It's because you guys are it's very customizable to the activities that you're providing, right?
Very much so. Yeah. Well, it's not custom software. We've just spent so long on it that it's very highly configurable. And look, we've got 90 different styles of tour operators. Whether they be walking tours, a skydiving operator, a helicopter company, a parasail, we've spent that long in it that, we struggle to find something we can't do in that space because we are focused on adventure tourism solely. We've dabbled and had a look around. We've got day spas and dentists and things like that. But it's like my passion, our love is adventure tourism. So that's where we want to stay. And especially now, this is kind of, I feel, when they need us.
So then it's like a learning process then for the operator, correct? I mean, like not a learning process. I guess it's a learning process, but in order to integrate properly, you have to figure out what's going to work specifically for your operation, and then be in contact with you guys, let you know what's working, what's not, so you guys can create solutions for those specific. And that's why I said that, because initially I thought it was a one size fits all. I didn't understand that there was going to be things that were tailored to me.
And it's good you say that, Kevin, because that's probably, as a company, one of our biggest challenges is the person that buys the software often isn't the person that uses it. It might be the marketer purchasing going, hey, this is going to really help my job, so buy this. And the general manager or the assistant at the store now has to throw in this extra process. They weren't part of the sales process. They've also just been landed with this new service that they've got to start using. And that's something we're certainly trying to improve is passing over that information and actually getting that kind of training done. Because if used wrong, digital waivers can be a really horrible situation, because we see companies that haven't been implemented right, use it as an extra step in the process, not to fill a void. So I went to a water park actually on the weekend, and I actually went to university with a girl that just started it, and I saw that they had actually become a client. And when I turned up, I was with a couple of friends. I was like, "Oh, these guys apparently use WhereWolf," and it wasn't there. And I kind of said to her, "What's going on?" She goes, "Oh, look, we weren't using it. I couldn't understand it, couldn't work it out, and it just kind of reminded me of the need to improve that part of it, because if it's an extra step, it creates a kind of fragmented process." But we stood for 15 minutes in the queue before paying, and then we stood for another 5 minutes waiting to get a life jacket, and then we stood for another 10 minutes before they started the briefing. That's when you should be using software to gather the information, and get the legal liability kind of side of things done. It's slightly different in New Zealand because you can't sue. But even more importantly, she then, after the activity came up and said, "Oh, look, we're doing an adults only day that I'm trying to market, but I've only put on Facebook. How else do you reckon I market?" I'm like, "Well, use WhereWolf to send them all an email and tell them what's going on, offer vouchers, make them book, all that kind of stuff." But yeah, it's something we're trying to work on, is to help that exact kind of process of understanding how to evolve your process.
Yeah. I said, because initially going into the show, I told Greg I had some concerns because I didn't, and I said, I'm the first person to admit that I'm an idiot. You know what I mean? I'm inherently stupid. So I've got no problem with, you know what I mean? But I was like, man, I've got to talk to these people, and I've got to make sure that, because I was just sort of in the middle, you know what I mean? Like, I say I'm an idiot, but inside I think I'm the fucking smartest guy in the world. I'm fucking smart. So I was like, I gotta dig. I can't just surface scratch this and go into the show and then I'm just not going to talk about the product. We'll talk about waivers, what have you, and leave it very general, because I really did. Yeah, I did not want to go into this show not understanding. So that's what I gained from last night, getting really deep into it, is that it's a process. It's a process like anything else. And I think that's probably the biggest misconception and probably the biggest objection that you have to deal with, is people they think it's just boop, it's just a waiver. They sign it online, they get there, it's signed, it's done, simple pimple, it's all done. And what I figured out is that there's a lot more to that, and there's a lot more of grooming it to what works for me and works for my business. So you got lucky that I was able to take that hour last night, and because now you're just getting a fucking hour-long pitch for your shit. But I'm back on board. But I wasn't. Initially, I was that guy.
I was worried it's going to be an hour-long, smashing. What have you done? What's going on?
If you would have set me on a Zoom call with a 75-year-old man or something, you know what I mean? Then it might have been what? Fuck this, hang up. I'm done having this conversation.
So, Kevin, when we started Waivers, we had a few clients that they called me up a week after and said, "Come over here and pick this up. We're done." They didn't want. I mean, it was one of those situations where the daughter of the business signed up, but once it got set up, the mother and father were just this ain't happening. It really,
in terms of a digital waiver system?
No, just a reservation system online.
Oh, reservation system.
It just it just was too different. The idea sounded great, that they can sell online and all this, but once they got into it, it was just too different. They needed a ramp up period, a longer ramp up period. That really changed my thinking on who is our customer and how we're selling, because getting customers is literally I wouldn't even say half the battle. It's a quarter of the battle. It's that once you sign them up, making sure they get through that onboarding process. The onboarding process is the most difficult part of getting a water sport operator or any really business operator, especially in tours, because that's where things go wrong. And sometimes the owners, they're not present, and they're the ones that, they're looking at the financials. If they can't, some of them, I mean, heck, they want things by paper still, handwritten. and they're getting like these digital forms, which is way better, these digital documents of reports, and they don't like them that way. So it was just, we really changed our onboarding process. We changed about what clients we're going after, because we don't want to get a situation where we utilize all of that time, where our staff just spends like hours and hours with this client, and then they decide they're not going to move forward because, someone doesn't like it. And that's a huge struggle for a lot of companies right now, because there's these factions in these companies where they've been doing everything the same way. I just had a conversation with a potential partner yesterday, and he said, well, the ownership I have right now, they've been doing this a long time. He's like, I'm probably not going to convince them to use TripShock. And I'm just like, okay, it's just one of those things where it's a huge.
Isn't that a hard conversation?
It's a hard conversation. I know where he's at. I was in his shoes at one time, and I understand that, but it's something where you got to get the owners to sit down and really understand the benefits and understand, are they willing to change for the better? Are they willing to change to make more money and to evolve their company?
God, I hope not. I mean, it's fucking perfect for me. I wouldn't be here if they fucking had, you know what I mean? If anybody understood this space,
if they had the savvy.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to. I'd have been gobbled up. Now they're starting to finally get it. Now I'm like, I got a fucking podcast that tells them how to do it. No, this was the smartest move in the world. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's really funny because I really like the idea of WhereWolf, and I like the product, and I was like just telling people about it. I was like, oh, it's so cool. It's like gives you all this data and all this information. It really just got me excited to fucking get my shit from TripAdvisor, because I'm not a big fan of those guys. So when I found there was a way for me to get their emails without relying on my dopey staff to like fucking write it on a table or on their hand or wherever they were going to put the emails, because they don't know how to use computers, that I can insult them. It's cool. They don't listen to podcasts. They're not smart like that. Yeah. So it's a good thing. I mean, I love to educate people. I like to see people grow. We're both from the school. There's no, in order for you to lose, in order for me to win, you need to lose sort of thing. I don't subscribe to that philosophy. So, but at any rate, Ben, what else do you got, man?
Well, that's a crazy open-ended question.
I just fucked you up, man.
Yeah, what else have I got? Do you want me to jump?
No, I just want you to keep on talking that badass voice of yours, dude. I'm ready to fucking.
The old Kiwi accent. Yeah, it's.
Yeah. So I think what Kevin's getting at is, what's the future of digital waivers?
That's what I meant.
I know. Yeah. What's the future of digital waivers? What's the future of online check-in? Like where do you see everything moving in the next 5 years?
Look, I think it's going to hit a lot more along the lines of kind of marketing enrichment. There'll be a lot more collaboration going on, I feel. At the moment, a lot of tour operators work quite silo. And if they've got data that they can kind of work with, whether it be, group deals, contra deals, things like that. I think when you've got more control over your data, you'll be able to use it to your advantage more. And I think that, look, the way privacy laws and things like that are going, it's going to make things pretty interesting. But I think some of the big companies are going to start to, use this to their advantage. And I think the check-in process is going to be easier, but it might not be quite so private.
At the end of the day, there's an inherent. I mean, it's one thing you don't want to share your data with. The guy on a marketer on Facebook or something. Okay. It's a whole nother thing for you to not want to share your data with somebody that you're about to go do something dangerous and you could potentially get hurt and sue me. So we're going to know who the fuck each other are, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know, I'm giving you a $30,000 boat. I'm going to know who you are. I'm giving you a $15,000 death ski. I want to know who the fuck you are. Like, I want to know where you live. I want to see your driver's license. I want to know all the motherfucker. I will steal your identity if I think you're going to sue me. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck, man. So at the end of the day, it's the world we live in. Like if you're going to go bungee jumping, if you're going to go parasailing, if you're going to do all this stuff, like there are some people, like I'm not selling your data. I mean, come on. But am I going to reach back out and say, hey, remember us? Give me a great review or do that sort of thing. It's just, it's just cost of having fun, man. Like you share it with Disney World. So
I was just going to say that I think it's actually quite awesome. A lot of the work that's being done to protect our privacy, because it's making it a little more, I personally, I can't stand when I just get, absolutely bombarded with emails or anything like that. But yeah, you're right. There's a time and a place. Yeah, it's like, if I'm going to give you a $30,000 boat, I need to know where you live, who your family members are, where your house is.
Right.
And I'm coming around.
You got it, buddy. Man, it's like you rented boats from me or something, man. You know how I roll.
So, Ben, do you have any final thoughts for any of our listeners regarding, digital check-in, digital waivers? What are some things that, they should take away from this discussion today?
I would just say keep an open mind and keep an ear to the ground. Change is good. Look for opportunity to help grow. See what's gonna help your customers. See what's gonna help the business. I think you nailed it, Kevin. It's like when you first take something new on board, if not done right, it can throw you off. That doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a try in the first place. Yeah.
And I just want to add something. If you're listening and you're like, well, what am I going to do with all that data? What am I going to do with all these emails? Hire a marketing expert. Don't worry about learning it. Don't worry about it. Hire somebody. And we have a couple of people that we can recommend if you reach out to us that will take that data, take those emails, and they'll make some magic happen with it. So don't worry about the aftermath of all the data collection. Just worry about collecting it because you're going to need it, because it's going to be much harder getting first-party data here in the future with all the privacy things going on. If you want to know more about that, we got a couple episodes we done recently to give you some insight on it. But Ben, we really appreciate you coming on the show. It was a great conversation. I think for our first international guest, I think it was a home run. So we really appreciate it. And if anyone needs to get a hold of you, if they have any questions or they just want more information about WhereWolf, how can they do that?
Just jump online, Google WhereWolf. Go to the website, have a look around. You can always email us at getstarted@getwhereWolf.com.
Hey, Ben, no, we're going to need more than that, man. I just told you what my process is. We want your phone number. We want your personal email, your address. I'm going to come by and fucking party, bro.
My address, 24 Camp Street. Party's on. Look, if you can get on one of those boats and make your way to New Zealand, be my guest, mate. I will welcome you with open arms.
I'm on my way, brother. I'm on my way.
Yeah, and Ben, I hope there's a rival this year, because I think you guys last one in Orlando.
It's in Orlando, isn't it?
Well, the one last time. But what are they doing this year? Are they going back to Orlando this year?
Absolutely, back at Orlando. I can't wait. I'm just going to strap on 3 masks and come on over.
I think they strategically chose Florida though for probably certain reasons. So
because you don't have to strap on 3 masks. You come to North Florida, you strap on 0 masks. Florida, man, you know how we do it. You catch us running down the freeway naked, man. Fucking all hopped up on bath salts.
So if you're listening and you go to the Arrival events, which I totally recommend you do, you can meet Ben. You don't have to go all the way to New Zealand. So so that's a wrap. Well, we appreciate everyone coming on and listening to the show. As always, keep it awkward.
You've been listening to the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. If you're in the water sport industry, this is the podcast that brings the business perspective to parasailing, jet and ski boat rentals, sailing, snorkeling, and everything else. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. Be sure to sign up to our email list at watersportpodcast.com and subscribe in your favorite podcast app. We'll see you next time, and thanks for listening.